I think it's fair to say that freedom of speech is under attack. I think after Charlie Kirk, after, trying to epitomize the left versus right, trying to engage civil war, all the stuff we saw on social media afterwards, where I saw that clearly this was not organic, that human behavior, like normal human beings, don't act in this way, that there was some sort of dark force luring people into this engagement, into the civil war. And we know that there's a lot of infiltrators. We know that the billionaire class, sowed division purposely to get us at the state of civil war. It's just have gone to extreme levels, ladies and gentlemen, that it seems like since, 2015, 2016, maybe in even some cases beforehand, but predominantly after, Donald Trump's first election, that we have seen this giant kind of spur of this dark entity of sowing division and causing this, epitome, left versus right, and attacking, demonizing each other, and cracking down on speech, cracking down on people's ability to share information, cracking down on social media. We saw it a lot with COVID. We saw a lot with, people that were bringing information about the Ukraine war, like how it originally started back in 2014, not when Russia invaded. They were doxxed. They were censored out of that. They've been harping on journalists. They went after people for questioning the 2020 election, so on and so forth. It's just chaotic, folks. It's absolutely chaotic. This gets even worse. So I found this. This is from Wiretap Media, where it says the chair of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. That's a thing, by the way. I didn't even know this existed until this tweet. The chair of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, Bernie Farber, has repeatedly misrepresented the truth, which has resulted in a rise of political violence in Canada. He says, quote, Nazis are in universities, they're in colleges, they're in businesses, they're in law firms, they're in government, they're all over the place. So this is a deranged lunatic, a deranged baby boomer, kind of McCarthy smearing lunatic that is part of this anti-hate network that is going on the record, on public television, to try to denounce everybody in all the parts of this country as being leered towards Nazis and fascism because they're critical of the establishment. Take a listen to this.
When there was a turn towards Islamophobia, Canadians and a lot of young Canadians turned against that. And I think that's something to recognize. However, let's be clear.
So he says at the beginning, when there was Islamophobia, a lot of younger Canadians turned against that they weren't going to be sowed in that division to go after Muslims or go after Arabs. And he says that's a great thing. But what? Wait for this. Because watch how he does a complete 180, going from that to then demonizing young people.
The Nazis of the 1980s and 1990s are not the Nazis of 2019. They are not skinheads on the streets getting into fights. They're in universities. They're in colleges. They're in businesses. They're in law firms. They're in government. They're all over the place. And if you take a look at them today, they're wearing suits and ties, nice trimmed beards, and they're...
Oh my God, they're well-groomed, they're wearing suits, they're in the law firms and the universities, and they're everywhere, folks! Everywhere! Oh my God! I would not expect someone to say that on a stage. That sounds like someone should have a straitjacket when saying, the Nazis are everywhere! I thought we got to a point where this crazy barbaric rhetoric was like out of people's minds. Like, remember when people thought there was a Russian at every point? Oh, that's connected to Russia. That's Russia. Russia's everywhere. They're conducting plots against us. I I thought we got off that point. I thought we were like done with that. I thought people that kind of steered course because people saw how insane, how diabolical, how demented that kind of thinking, that kind of mentality is damaging. I thought we got away from that, but now, no, Nazis, you know, they're not like the German Nazis. They're not like skinheads that, you know, are out loud and proud. They're wearing suits and ties, and they're in universities and college campuses and law firms and grocery stores. And I think I even sat next to one at Applebee's. Holy crap. Holy crap. I want to hear this again. That is just, wow.
When there was a turn towards Islamophobia, Canadians and a lot of young Canadians turned against that. And I think that's something to recognize. However, let's be clear. The Nazis of the 1980s and 1990s are not the Nazis of 2019. They are not skinheads on the streets getting into fights. They're in universities. They're in colleges. They're in businesses. They're in law firms. They're in government. They're all over the place. And if you take a look at them today, they're wearing...
Look at even the people next to him. Look at this. Look at this. This guy here on his far left there, he's like, he has the look of like, why the hell am I here? I want to get out. Like his soul has just left his body at this point. Okay, Grandpa, you're spewing on that Nazis are everywhere. Okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'm out of here. My thoughts are just out of the room. And this woman's looking at him like, oh, should we give him medication? Where's the tranquilizer? How to be on the same stage when this is being spewed out? There's a Nazi everywhere. They're wearing ties. They're in law firms. They're in universities. They're Nazis. We don't know why.
And if you take a look at them today, they're wearing suits and ties, nice trimmed beards, and they're finding ways into young people's consciousness. And we have to find a way to battle that. And the only way to battle that, well, you have your parents on the one hand, but where are kids spending most of their time? In school.
So, this is just crazy. This is just crazy. You literally just congratulate young people for not being Islamophobic. Which, yeah, young people can easily point out that that's, you know, a racist trope coming from the top down. Again, to further divide, that's post 9/11, you know, fear tactics that Muslims and Arabs are evil people and they're doing, you know, demonic things and terrorism and the Quran and blah, 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 blah. You know, that's crazy lunatic talk. That's what, you know, Laura Loomer spews out constantly, which is why she's a joke. But anyway, moving on from that. You went from that to then now demonizing young people because they're soaked into the Nazi language because Nazis are infiltrating universities. They're in the schools. They're in the grocery stores. They're in magazines. You see them on TikTok. What is happening? And they're wearing suits. They got trimmed beards. Oh my God, they're so well groomed. It's horrifying. And we got to do something about it. Oh, jeez. I'm actually shocked that I have not heard this group until now. I'm shocked that I have not heard much about this anti-hate group until recently. Apparently they came out in like 2019. So they say, but I have not heard a word about this till now. Well, here's what Wikipedia. I did a little search about this, and you can't really trust Wikipedia for a lot of things, but it was the closest thing I got. And it says the Canadian Anti-Hate Network is a Canadian nonprofit organization that monitors hate crimes and far-right groups. And I just want to remind people that while you can look at that and say, well, okay, they're going to go after like the actual Nazis, the actual people dedicated to fascism. You've seen over time how they try to diverge a lot of the corrupted, captured government rhetoric as hatred. You know, they consider exercise right wing. They consider homesteading right wing. Hey, you buy fruits and vegetables and make a salad. That's right wing. Like, just keep in mind the rhetoric that they spewed in our heads all this time to propagandize anything that's outside of the corporate captured government narrative is some sort of right-wing hatred against the system. So to have a nonprofit that's going to monitor that, it's just insane. And that's why this Bernie Farmer guy, or Farber, whatever his name is, Bernie Farber, is spewing this kind of garbage. Well, on the one hand, I think the young people, are not anti-Semitic, and I thank them for that, but they're getting diabolically corroded by Nazis! It's so crazy. And it was formed in 2018 in Toronto, Ontario, has received funding from the government of Canada, of course it did, provides information to journalists and the media, researchers, law enforcement, policymakers, and community organizations. So they're basically a think tank. They're basically a government-bought think tank to go after what they consider hate speech. That's what this is. It's not actually stopping hatred or stopping violent rhetoric from spewing about. It's not helping the country in any way. It's used to demonize the country, demonize the young people. As more and more young people are waking up to the actuality, the realization that our entire country's been captured. And you have this stupid goddamn organization brought to you by the Canadian government to crack down on hate crimes and far-right groups. Well, consider you demonize everything from exercise to having a healthy marriage as right-wing. I'm very skeptical on what exactly they're monitoring. And the fact that they're providing this information to journalists and the media, researchers, law enforcement, policymakers. They're sowing more division. They want to add more hatred. Because why would they solve hatred? Why would they solve hatred? That's not in their agenda. If they solve hatred, there would be no need for an anti-hate group. There would be no need for this. Wow. So crazy. Diverge Media pointed this out. This is Ontario court decision. So the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, funded by the government of Canada, did in fact assist Antifa. So Antifa, that's being assigned as a terrorist organization, particularly in America by the Donald Trump administration, but there's hints of it happening here, which I don't endorse Antifa. I condemn Antifa for what they've done, but I also state that, hey, if we're going to go down this, rabbit hole figuring out what's a terrorist group and what isn't a terrorist group, I would consider, people like George Soros, Bill Gates, Galen Weston, the people that have actual control and demonize our population into their malice agenda. That's kind of on the forms of terrorism, don't you think? Especially these multinational organizations that have nothing to do with Canada. If we're gonna pick and choose what terrorist groups to go after, and it says so to summarize, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network assisted Antifa. Antifa is likely to be listed as a terrorist organization in the United States. Here is, so this is from the Ontario courts. They have a bit of rhetoric here, and you'd seen the highlighted part. It says, second, the trial judge considered self-defense of justification and concluded that the Canadian Anti-Hate Network did in fact assist Antifa and that the movement had been violent. He also found that a human rights network like CON arguably should not support a violent movement, and to most reasonable observers, doing so was not a good look. So, amazingly, an anti-hate network is actually funding hatred. Go figure. Go figure. It's like we're trying to stop terrorism, but before we stop terrorism, you have to kind of create it. We got to kind of fund the people to cause terror, to cause havoc, to manufacture a war, and then we can send troops over there to fight the problem. That's the West for you. That's the West for you. It's gain of function methodology. Just like how they gain of function, medical diseases and viruses that contaminate to people. Here they are manufacturing hatred. Here they are manufacturing war. Here they are manufacturing division. And like I said, after Charlie Kirk's death, when I saw social media go abrupt in people attacking each other and causing a civil war, I looked at that as that is not organic. That is not how human beings behave. That this is some sort of demonic entity. And I know that sounds crazy coming from me because I'm agnostic and, demons is an Alex Jones term. I hate this guy to steal my terms. But there's no other way to explain it. It's a dark presence that they're sowing division purposely to cause hatred for this reason. And what makes this more just absolutely diabolical is because they're sowing division, because they're sowing hatred, because this group is now denouncing people as being some sort of white supremacist, Nazi support, just like we heard with the Canadian Freedom Convoy. Remember how the news media covered them and said that they were Russian assets, they were white supremacists, they were Nazis, they were far right. And yet you saw all the people that were there. There was Indians, there was Chinese, there was all sorts of Canadians, black and white, all over the place, from all walks of life. But the goal of this is to bring this tension to an extreme level that now the government is intervening to ride up more hate speech legislation. And this is the ultimate goal of this. This is why they're sowing division. This is why they're causing this much chaos. Because then the government could step in and say, hey, we got the solution. We're going to start censoring. We're going to go after your civil rights. We're going to go after your ability of speech. And we're going to demonize, we're going to figure out what is considered hate speech. Because now we got our little pocket organization at our side to dig up dirt on people and give us the information. So now here's Mark Nixon pointing this out, saying, breaking, hate crime up to life in prison in Canada. So what the Canadian government considers a hate crime. Not by a jury, not by a trial, but by the Canadian government, by the liberal Mark Carney insidious government. They're going to decide if it's hateful enough to be sent to prison for life. And you think I'm kidding? Listen to what one of the MPs are about to address here to the nation. Watch.
Let me deal with the hate penalty first. So if you're found guilty of an indictable offense, a maximum penalty under the hate crime, it will be a 5 years. If the maximum term of imprisonment for the included offense is 2 years or more, but less than 5 years. 10 years if the maximum term of imprisonment is included offense is 5 years or more, but less than 10 years. 14 years if the maximum term of imprisonment is the included offense is 10 years or more, but less than 14 years. And life if the maximum term of imprisonment for the included offense is 14 years or more, and up to imprisonment for life.
So we can't. I am just so baffled by this. So at the same time, they just voted down to have a 3-strike law to go after violent repeated criminals, actual violent criminals. They voted that down. At the same time, they're drafting legislation to say that if you are guilty of hate speech, which again, you can't legislate on hate speech. Hate speech is a emotion. Hate is an emotion. You can't legislate on a human emotion. That's ridiculous. That'd be like making it illegal to be happy or sad or crazy or stressed. It's unbelievable that they're doing this. Unbelievable that they're doing this. But you don't want to arrest violent repeated criminals, but you're going to send people to prison, to sentences up to 10 years, even for life, if you deem them with hate speech, with hateful rhetoric, with words that you disagree with. And that's not judged by the Ontario court system. That's not judged by the actual jurisdiction. That's judged by the government. That is a violation of our charters and rights and freedoms. And considering the fact that Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, two of the most predominant Canadians that actually gathered the nation together in a peaceful demonstration, got charged with mischief because they had to be charged with something. Otherwise, this whole affair was an absolute absurdity and a waste of time and a complete demonic attack against Canadians. So they charged them with mischief and sent them both to 8 years of prison. 8 years for bringing the country together. And yet we have the Canadian government funding this anti-hate network that's purposely then funding other groups that are deemed hateful to sow division so that they can say they can stop hatred. Wow. How unbelievable this is. Well, it actually is believable. Again, the direction this country is going, the direction that a lot of these countries are going, I can't be surprised anymore. I literally can't be surprised anymore that this is happening, that they're going to crack down on hate speech. Hate speech. Have we not learned anything from what's happening in the UK? Have we not learned anything when Julian Assange was being tortured for doing journalism? Have we not learned anything throughout human history on how awful censorship is? I have stated this numerous times before, folks. You name a time in human history, name a point in any time that censorship worked for people, that silencing out the masses and demonizing their thoughts, demonizing their ideas, works beneficial for society. Go ahead. Oh, wait. You're gonna have to speak up. I can't hear you. Oh, that's right. Never does. It never does. Censorship is the longest battle of human history. Our ancestors fought against it. Our grandparents fought against it. So many people have fought against it throughout all of civilization. And this is it's worse, even worse now, because we have the internet, because we are being watched and monitored by surveillance systems. The fact that we have AI now that could easily just scoop up any information that could trace and track through an algorithm. That's what makes this so diabolical. That's what makes this so just awful. Absolutely awful. And it's become, it should be a more just talked about issue. Like, it's amazing this hasn't gotten the mainstream attention it deserves, because this is a direct attack on Canadians and their rights and liberties as being Canadian. One of the great values of being in this country is now you're seeing the government full force attacking and demonizing Canadians and their rights to express an opinion. I'm a grown adult. I'm a human being. I have a brain. I have a heart. And I'm able to use them. That's what makes us human beings. And if we can't do that, if the government is demonizing against us for having these thoughts and ideas, then there's not really a point to civilization. There's not really a point to human existence. You're going to start muzzling people and lock them in prison, then there's no point to human existence. I know that sounds dark. I know that sounds like a black pill statement to say, but that's the truth. Because human beings cannot survive. Our society doesn't thrive and function under complete silence from authoritarian governments. And here's what makes it even more such an issue. This website here This is from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. So this is under the new Bill C-9 that they're putting out. So we already know about Bill C-11. We know about Bill C-18. That's the bill that we can't share, news articles on Facebook for some stupid reason. They claim that it's supposed to support journalists, but it hasn't. And we know that there's the incoming Bill 6-3, which is the Online Harms Act. That's where they want to start penalizing people for social media posts that they find offensive. This is going to make this even worse. Even worse. Because Bill C-9 is risking the criminalization of peaceful protests. And it doesn't matter what you're protesting for. You have to respect and acknowledge people's rights and abilities to protest. That is what it means to protect free speech. Free speech is there to not protect the things that you like. It's there to protect the people that you disagree with, that you find putrid, that you find hateful, that you disagree with. That's why I fight and defend people that I disagree with. I don't agree with Alex Jones. I don't agree with Ben Shapiro. I don't agree with the right wing. I don't agree with people on the left wing. But I don't think they should be arrested or canceled or demonize or go after them and restrict them their speech because they have a different opinion than my own. And anyone that thinks that is absolutely ridiculous, and you're not really for free speech. It's either for everybody or for none. It's that simple, folks. So I'm not going to read all this, but here's just to make a point about this. On September 19, 2025, the government of Canada introduced Bill C-9 with the declared intent to make Canadians safer. Oh, I'm so sick of hearing that. Oh, we're making Canadians safer. Think of the kids. Think of the children. Cyberbullying. Bullshit. Bullshit. You have not made Canadians safer one bit. Why the hell am I supposed to believe you with this heinous bill? You're demonizing Canadians. Instead, this legislation proposal creates new criminal laws that can make the denial of fundamental freedoms much easier. We must all work together to combat hatred and build a more inclusive, equal society, said, I can't even say this woman's name, Anis McNichol. Sure. Director of the Fundamental Freedoms Program at the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. However, we must also remember that criminal law is not the solution to every social problem. As drafted, Bill C-9 risks criminalizing some forms of protected speech and peaceful protests, two cornerstones of a free and democratic society, as tens of thousands of communities gathered spaces in Canada. Exactly. But, sadly, we don't live in a democracy. We don't even live in a country at this point. We're basically an empty vessel for people like Mark Carney, for the private equity firms, for the donor class to just come in, liquidate all of our assets, sell it off to their buddies, and give everyone else the middle finger. That's what we've become now. And again, I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer. I don't mean to black pill people and say that there's, but at this point, if we want to function, if we want to maintain our existence, if we want to maintain what little we have left of this country, and I'm saying this for all of the other countries as well, if you want to maintain America independence and UK and Australia and all the other Western countries that are all doing this, which goes to show you that this is a global front. This is not a country by country basis. This is the entire globe being captured and corroded by this. That if we want to save our independence, we want to save our sovereignty, we have to come together as a society and fight the good fight. And in a peaceful, law-abiding way. I'm not resorting to violence. I condone political violence because once you start making violent attacks, that's when all hell breaks loose and we get into a violent civil war kind of scenario. But the only way we're going to do this if we come together, be level-headed, That doesn't mean you have to completely disparage all your beliefs or all your own opinions, but you have to come together as a society and realize that this is impacting everybody. This is going to impact everybody, not just right wing, not just Christians, not just Jewish people, not just, Palestine protesters. It's going to affect every single one of you. And that's why this is such a big deal. This is why it's so vital for me. One of my top issues is fighting for free speech. And it's not just because I'm a podcaster. It's not because I'm doing content creation and it affects my job. But the fact that as a person that has a functioning brain and a heart and my own personality, my own perspective, my own thoughts and beliefs, that if I cannot express them in a civilized society, then there's not really a point to human existence. Not really a point. Which is just absolutely grotesque. And possibly the mindset of these nefarious monsters. But I'm no psychologist, and really I don't want to get into the minds of these billionaire gross ass monsters.